to order. This is the Capital Facilities Committee meeting for December 5th, 2024. I'll take the roll if I could. Ms. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Richards?
I'm here.
And Ms. Higgins said that she would try to get here but will be late. And I'm here. So, Matt, you want to start off with
Sure will.
the capital improvement plan?
Sure will. I'm going to try to achieve two things, kill two birds with one stone. We're looking at the capital improvement plan that goes out for 10 years, but we're also going to see the column for 2025, which you'll see again when we come for the budget time for summer projects. So there's some information on the side here, the far left-hand side, the little over 1 million square feet of buildings and grounds, 186 acres, 6 facility vehicles that we have. Total operation rough cost about $2.3 million in water, sewer, gas, utilities cost to operate. But what I want to talk about is we'll go right through the list, and it's a discussion I really want to emphasize for people watching, for the board. These are estimates. So these dollars would have to be, if approved down the road for what the work is, those would be formally gone out for bid, and then we would get real estimates. So we're putting in rough estimates. So don't take these numbers right now to the bank until, if we commit to any of this work, then we would iron those out and make them real tight. So one of the things what I'd like to propose is we look at an annual lawn service, much in the way that we do the snow plowing and snow removal. This year we were shorthanded staff-wise, and we had brought in a company, local company, to come in and maintain all of our fields, all of our properties. What I'd like to add to that is spring and fall cleanup. Within that would be weeding, tree cutting, and what we need to do to maintain our properties. I think in the past, some of the board members and we as staff had heard criticisms that it's a lot of acreage to keep up with 5 people. So I'd like that to be considered, and we'll talk again when we talk about the summer projects. Small little thing, but a granite step repair. We have a crack and a step in the front of Abbott Downing I'd like to get taken care of. The next line down is in line with our strategic plan. We talk about sustainability. We talk about future thinking of that. And the proper way to do this would be to look at hiring a consultant or an engineer or a combination of both, and look at things like solar canopies, solar panels on roof, wind harvesting, water harvesting, and sustainable landscape. And this is district-wide. So if we were to look at maintaining and continuing with our strategic plan, this would be a good step forward. What would follow that is recommendations in a report. And so, based on those, then the board can make decisions, and we can work with the board to help prioritize what those suggestions might be. Blue lights. We have blue lights up at the high school and the middle school. There's some tweaks we need to do it, but it's an alert notification that we want to put in, and we put it in the grant funding already, but we utilized the monies that we were given for other things that were under the grant. So it's a up-and-coming thing that a lot of schools do for notification. If school goes into lockout and you're in a busy section, a cafeteria, hallways, stairwells, these lights would indicate with proper training that, hey, the school's in lockdown. Either get out of the building safely if you can, or hunker down in a classroom. And we train that through CRAZE. But I did want to put that in there as a consideration. I'm going to organize this a little bit more after tonight, but in sequence, when we talked back about the sustainability study, we would then have recommendations. I don't put a number in there because it's hard to tell what those recommendations would be until we have the study. But I want to put a placeholder in there for consideration. Infrastructure, site improvements related to sustainability, we start looking deep, and Jim, you would remember, we've looked at the site up at Beaver Meadow, that the drainage has failed and structures have failed, and we've replaced them over time. But if you look down in the next line down, we're looking at a traffic engineer. We know that we've had traffic issues at Beaver Meadow. We've talked about them on the research we've done for the middle school over on the Broken Ground site. So I've included Broken Ground and Millbrook to finish that up, and then Abbott Downing in the existing runway. So I have a placeholder in there that if we were to continue on, we would want to hire a traffic engineer, and then with that, we would get recommendations, and then we could price that out accordingly. So I did also put a placeholder in for that as well. Back to safety, we installed this summer, a lot of the first floor, as you get close to the office areas and entries, we have security film. I'd like to continue that pattern and talk with you folks about any first floor windows at our schools, just making it more difficult for people to penetrate. Window replacements, I have that for Runlet, Broken Ground, and Beaver Meadow. Those windows have gone beyond their useful life. They have sills that have failed, and so I think it's more than just replacing the glass. It's a full.
Are those complete building window replacements? Or?
They would be, yeah. So we did window counts. I had a local glass contractor come, give us a rough estimate, but we have the window counts for those 3 schools, and then with that, we applied a rough opening number to it. Generators, we've talked about for years. It's been on our capital improvement plan to look at putting a generator up at Beaver Meadow. Also Broken Ground, there is a generator that serves just the heating system for Broken Ground and is a backup generator for Millbrook. But I'd like to look at, down the road, putting in additional supplemental power because we have had outages over there as well as Beaver Meadow. Back in 2021, HMFH put a rough list together of about 7 different things that they recommended we do before 2025. And so as we go along this list, there's a couple of things, and I've added some estimate numbers, and I've added a 3% escalator from 2021. Again, these are estimates. They're not tried and true just yet, but replacing paving and driveways and entry plazas at RMS was one of the recommendations. Some things that have come up over the years is every roughly 3 to 5 years, we put playground mulch in our playgrounds. Something that we've talked about over the years is maybe we take a look at all of our elementaries. They all have playgrounds, and instead of continually just changing it out with playground mulch, which is obviously safe and a requirement, but we might want to look to upgrade a solid surfacing that's safe but accessible for anyone who wants to use it, our playgrounds. Kind of in that same line of thinking, Krista McAuliffe, on the south side of the property, it's 2.79 acres, so it's relatively small. There's a play area out there, and there's a time of year in the spring that it gets very difficult to have kids running in and out and bringing mud in and getting dirty and getting yelled at by parents. So
is that back by the parking lot?
Could you move this over just a little bit so people can see?
Yes. Yep. This way.
Is that back by the swing sets here?
It is. It's right behind the swing sets on the south side of the property. It's a rectangular spot.
Yeah.
We put drainage in after it opened up because it's heavy soil over there. So I just think it might be good and more usable if we can look long range to maybe put some sort of a play surface area. I put a play mini field, but it would just be something kids could play kickball on and that sort of thing. I have Memorial Field on here. We're going to talk a little bit at the end of the meeting about Memorial Field. As everyone knows, the presentations from the city were at $28,500,000. Kathleen and I talked. We thought just for placeholder purposes, we would split that cost in half, but just know that it sounds like with all of the planning and some of the discussions, I put it in for the following year, 2026.
Well, and it also could end up being staggered, but
It definitely
placeholder
could.
Purposes.
Yes. The next one down, replacing the gym floors. Those floors are original with the buildings at Beaver Meadow, Runlet, and the high school, and I tried to put them in priority. Beaver Meadow is a rubberized surface, and we have seams. We've done multiple repairs on them, and it's just time. They're beyond the point of continually patching and repairing. So I'd like to put that in for year after next. Runlet Middle School, while we're talking, and it's part of the capital improvement plan, so we'll take whatever direction, but it is on the list for consideration the following year, and I'm trying to spread that out a little bit. But that would be a full removal of all of the varnish all the way down. See the condition of the floor. We have spots on the hardwood floor that are lifting, and it has nothing to do with the varnish that's on there. It's the wood substrate underneath. So I wanted to put a placeholder in for looking at that because we're still using it. And then Concord High School's gym. I think you might remember about 5 years ago we had a flood in the gym. We had some damage. We had it all resurfaced, and there's very, very little wood left. It will last for several years, but at some point in time, we're going to need to look at replacing it. This one I want to just talk a little bit through with everybody. Roof replacement. I don't think it comes as any surprise that we've got some roof leak issues over at Runlet. What I've done is we've invited a local contractor to come out and just look at the obvious. And he gave us a estimate cost of $19,000 to come in and just simply patch some holes. I personally don't think that's even nearly enough because it's a 165 square foot building with a lot of roof on there. There's a lot of different roofing substrates on there, but we've got to do something. So I'm putting a placeholder in. You'll see the following year. I would be looking on, depending on what's going on, looking at a full replacement. It is well past its prime. Again, these numbers are estimates. I want to make sure people know that. I may say it a few more times tonight, not to be annoying, but just to remind people. Eastman's something that we should be talking about. There's definitely roofing repairs we need to do there as well in the parking lot. It's got a little half moon and a little small parking lot in the front, but out back is where the Boys and Girls Club pick up and drop off for their childcare, and it's a dirt parking lot with a lot of potholes in it. So I'm going to be suggesting we look at doing that this summer. Back to the HMFH recommendations back in 2021, and again, I apologize that these might be a little bit out of sequence in terms of how we structured it, but I'll get that all organized. I just wanted to review with you the things that we're looking at. Upgrade of the electrical system, that's receptacles, lighting, fixtures, but also bringing in a new service. Fire protection systems, if you looked at the existing conditions report that was done by RFS Engineering in 2017 and then back in 2022, it lists these conditions out. I would strongly urge people to really look at that. It's available. It's pretty straightforward. Upgrade the fire alarm systems. We have a number in from that as a recommendation as well. Under the plumbing systems, this is essentially scratching the surface because we're looking at four remaining areas that are quote-unquote multi-stall bathrooms, and they need to be renovated. I think, again, Jim, you come to mind when, we've talked about this over time. They're in pretty rough shape. They have hazardous materials in the wall inside of that, so in order to do a renovation, you have to include all of that removal. In doing so, what I'd like to focus on, Kathleen and I spoke about, if we're going to do these types, and it's, we want to look at the future, and whether we build new or whatever we do, we want to look at family style or single style bathrooms. Upgrade the mechanical systems. Again, all of these are rough numbers, but I can't stress enough. It's hard to sit here sometimes and have people interpret numbers that aren't out for bid yet. So I'm trying to do a fair way to compare these. So the first one was to take the 300 wing and convert those to mini splits, and then the following year would be to take the balance of the remaining 12 air handlers and replace those. It's a big ticket number. It's $12 million, but when you look at what we've done at the elementary schools, the middle school being much larger, and you look at the high school, and I bounce this off of one of our contractors, that's a ballpark. Interior ductwork cleaning, so people think HVAC, you think of boilers, you think of fans and motors and dehumidification, but you also have to consider the piping, the ductwork that goes and delivers from the unit on the roof or in a mechanical room into the school. So it's best practices to have the interior ductwork cleaned. We have filters, we have MERV filters, high filtration systems, but it's still recommended that you do that roughly every 10 years. Flooring, I putting together numbers, just looking at if we're going to do flooring, and we need to do it not just in hallways at the high school, the middle school, Broken Ground, and Beaver Meadow, but you also want to do classrooms. So as we walk through and we talk about this plan, if you're going to go in and do an upgrade, you do the floors, you want to paint the interior, you want to replenish the furniture in there, and you want to add new fixturing and lighting and that sort of thing to really give it a good upgrade. This one's familiar to everyone. It's a sinkhole up at the high school. I plan on doing that this summer. Working with Novus Engineering right now on permitting and waivers and trying to get some good costs together, a scope of work, so we can bid that work out and schedule it for this summer. Believe it or not, we do schedule a lot of the stuff now for 6 months down the road. Interior door plate replacement. Up at the high school, it could be the quality of the product that was originally installed in the school, but we have, if you take a walk around, we've got quite a few wood doors that are delaminating. I'd like to take care of that, so I've got a number in there for that. Exterior door replacements at Beaver Meadow. We've got a couple of years, but it's within the 10 years. I think it would be appropriate to change those out. Same thing with Runlet Middle School. Those are old and tired doors, and I think we need to put a plan together to get those replaced as well. Furniture upgrades, back to my upgrades in the classrooms. I'm trying to look at, we're trying to do this for the whole district. So if we were looking at roughly 8 classrooms per school, you know, would try to get that out for bid, bring it back to you folks in a capital facilities committee meeting, and then get approval that we would put in our plan to upgrade these classrooms in schools that are older. CHS auditorium upgrade. So I put a number of $2 million in there. I did that because there's been a lot of talk when we had other public sessions up at the high school auditorium. We heard from the drama folks. We had a lot of discussions around the size of auditorium for a middle school. There's things that I think we can look at doing. The seats up there definitely need to be replaced. The flooring does as well. But the balcony, we have 394 seating capacity in the entire auditorium. We have a balcony, but its only purpose is storage. I'm told that back before the renovation in the mid-early 90s, that used to have a slope to it. It was bigger, and they had capacity for almost 200 seats. I'd like to reopen that and look at what could be done to make it structurally sound, obviously, but increase seating and utilize that other than just for storage. CHS and RMS door lock replacement. We put in what's commonly known as a Columbine lock. We did it at Broken Ground in Beaver Meadow just over the Thanksgiving holiday. That was part of a grant. What that essentially is that a teacher can lock the classroom from the inside versus what they have now in those schools, which is locking from the outside. It's recommended by Homeland Security. It's been on our safety reports, and I want to keep chasing that till we get them all.
Matt, is it safe to say that we'll keep an eye on grants, safety grants, and other? I mean, we've done pretty well with that.
I'm glad you.
So some of these could fall under that grant.
They absolutely could, and they have. The ones for Broken Ground and Beaver Meadow have. I would definitely give a shout out to Ellen Desmond, our grants manager. She works tirelessly chasing grants and finding the money, and we've been able to get a lot of stuff done on this big overall capital improvement because of her hard work and effort. Interior and exterior painting, that's something that you want to do every year. Again, if you look at, we're over 1 million square feet of buildings and grounds. That's a lot of interior and exterior surfaces that need to be painted and maintained. A good rule of thumb is striping of parking lots every 5 to 7 years. People don't consider that a big deal sometimes, but it gets a real big deal when you have tight parking and liabilities and that sort of thing. So I've got a number in for that. Ledge repair. I've had that in for 2 years, and I want to really lock that down this summer and get that taken care of. It's safe, but there's some structural degradation going on.
Is it the back entrance?
It's
to
at
Beaver
the,
Meadow? Good.
so when you drive into, it would be the entrance you would take if you were coming into the kitchen first.
Oh.
And it's mainly
I'm thinking
down
the gym
below.
entrance.
Well,
Is it on
so
is
it's-
it where the curvy ramp walks down to the?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yes.
salt, snow melt
Right.
over the years, it gets in. It's a cantilevered. I've had TF Moran come in and structurally do an analysis. We analyze the composition and the condition of, professionally from a third party, of the concrete. And although it's safe right now, it's not going to get any better unless
You
we.
showed us a picture of that.
Yes.
I have,
Mhm.
I have. But I'll show you more because we're going to, not tonight, but we're going to look at doing that this summer. Paving of the White Farm parking lot. We occupy that. We use it all the time. They're included in that is when you drive into the main property, the one before the state property where the auction center is, but the one before Project C, it's a dirt parking lot. We get a lot of use out of that. we need to make that more accessible, so I'd like to not just pave that parking lot, but also pave the sidewalk and walkway into the buildings, because it's the right thing to do.
Is
And
it
then
fair to say that some kids have access over there?
Yes.
Issues with our kids that may have other ways, mobile issues, right?
It's very safe to say that. That's 100% the fact. I put on there building automation systems. We have that for all of our buildings except for this one. So what can be challenging and difficult is if this boiler, and boilers are boilers, if this boiler goes down over a weekend in the middle of winter, we and we are having building checks, which is great, but you can never be too prepared. So I think it's a good measure to look at putting that on building automation so that we can see if something goes into alarm. If a boiler goes out in the middle of the night on a Saturday and it doesn't get caught until Monday morning, that can be too late. So I again, think it's something I want to include on the capital improvement. I also am throwing out some considerations, but before I do, a lot of the placement of where I tried to put work to be done that ties to the description, that again these are recommendations from me, from knowing the buildings and, you know, being in them for over 16 years. But if you see or hear, or you hear from, you know, constituents or other parents, other concerns, this is a fluid worksheet. So we can add, we can shift things, we can move things. So I just offer that out to you. It might be worth really digesting this, and then we come back at another Capital Facilities Committee meeting and review that and get in more in the weeds, and we can show pictures and that sort of thing. I guess the last thing I wanted to do, as we're talking about capital improvement, is also just, I termed it considerations. It's just things to think about. Again, these are estimates, but Eastman, I think we should really think about what we ultimately want to do with that, because we're looking at a building that we've got to put some significant renovation and repairs into. There's abatements in there as well. 2023, we had a independent realtor give us a value of 1.4. I think it's good for the board to consider talking on next steps, next phases with that. We on the next item down, we work our transportation department out of the comp, and they are looking at doing a significant renovation to their HVAC, which is original with the building. And with that, they want to do some plumbing and bathroom upgrades that would also benefit the school district. They want to do some infrastructure to run electrical lines for electric vehicles in the future. And there's paving, there's a whole lot of stuff. Jack and I have been meeting and discussing with the city group different plans and ideas that they're considering. And again, I just want to keep it on the forefront that it's a discussion item. Universal pre-K, I guess I'm hitting everything tonight. That is just something that we've always talked about. So, you know.
It's in the strategic plan in the curriculum instruction area, and I think you already know how full your preschools are, just providing for support for students, our 3 and 4 year olds. So, I mean, it's there because it's part of your strategic plan down the road at some point.
Yeah. So, cost, location, all of that stuff, TBD, but I just want to keep it on the radar. Security vestibules, at Runlet Middle School, if, you know, that's something that we should consider, if that's part of the plan, to the 2 entries in there to make them more secure, much the same way that we did this summer through a grant for CRTC the high school main entrance, Broken Ground and Beaver Meadow. As we're talking about what we did over the summer, we may want to look deeper into the front office reconfiguration at Concord High School. When we did the vestibule, we put a teller window at these locations, and so it's caused us to be resourceful in coming up with a way to modify the inside. But I think looking long range at the high school, maybe there's some other flow patterns and how that office can work more fluid-like. So I'd like that to be a consideration we look at down the road. Kathleen and I have spoke. You think of the size of the district, you think of the amount of supplies and everything that we get, and the timeliness of it. It's just an idea to think about that if we had some sort of I call it a butler building. That's in the trade what it is. It's just basically a steel building, but something that we could call a warehouse. Again, it's a consideration. It's not these are estimates, but if you look at efficiencies and the way we operate, it might be something we want to explore further. I think it'd be good to look into that a little bit deeper.
Let me give you an example that, when we need paper, for instance, it's all done via each school. They're doing the ordering when we could have advantage financially with bulk, but we don't have a place to put bulk, right? So we thought about that, but it isn't just paper. It's all kinds of supplies, furniture, equipment, things that are used in the district that we go through to have that as some place for storage, because each of the schools don't have that capacity to do that. Perhaps Runlet has some storage area downstairs in the basement, right?
But it's full. We fill it with equipment from other old
Right.
furniture.
And I think they use it for food too, right?
We do.
The canned product, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially the government commodities. That's
Yes.
down there. Okay. It's just something to think about. We're not suggesting that you do that tomorrow. We're just things to think about over the next 10 years.
Makes our operations a lot smoother. Because you are right. When once a month we get a truckload of government delivery food, and we're shuffling. It's a lot of it's pretty labor intensive versus if we had a warehouse to operate. Just something to think about. And then lastly, the west wing of the high school. Most of that plumbing is original on all floors, and we have quite a few bathrooms. I think it's 12 in that section. And so I'd like to consider putting that in the capital improvement plan as we go along here. We've had problems. We've had to cut things out. We've had to modify piping. We're getting close. Within this next 10 years, I want to put it back into our plan.
I appreciate the Runlet estimates, and looking at this, I just want to be clear that these would patch like immediate problems, but they don't make the school ADA compliant.
No.
Or address fire codes or the safety issues in the driving.
Correct.
Okay, and I assume, is there anything in here that would have to be done even if we decide we're gonna go forward, other than patching the roof? We're gonna go forward with the new middle school.
I think roof, and I think the 300 wing AC or HVAC. I think upgrading the power. We struggle with power on that. It's a 1957 building, and we have panels in that building that are 1957.
We have
So I'd
Noven
want to. What's that?
Not quite.
Not quite Noven too.
Yeah. If athletics were here, they'd want a new gym floor in here, quite frankly. But it is in rough shape. I mean, we need to. I think the struggle is, there's a high cost there, and if you're going to, board made a decision several years ago, we would build new. So you struggle with how much do you put in, good after bad.
Yeah. Another
Sure.
question. One of the things that I thought was great was, and I know we did it through a grant, but I would like to see it at other schools too, is accessible playground equipment. And I think it was Beaver Meadow, we did.
We
Broken
did.
ground.
Broken
Broken-
ground, yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate the surface to make it more accessible, but, you know, getting the kids out there and not having anything they can play on.
Right. I think I should have
It's only
explained.
half the battle.
Yeah.
I probably should have explained that better. I have a placeholder in for the surfacing, but I think it would be automatic that we would look at components to our existing to add on or do something with to make them accessible.
As far as the Eastman School, I don't want to invest any, I don't know where others are, but I would like to see us put something on the November ballot to dispose of that property.
Yeah, talk about good money after bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We haven't gone on a field trip there for a long time, man. But
Well,
last
when's our
time
next
we
capital
did-
facilities? Yeah.
Yeah.
Last time we did, there was a lot of repair work that needed to be done with window wells. I seem to remember an awful lot of lead in that building.
There's lead, there's asbestos,
Yeah.
PCB tiles that have been encapsulated, but there's a significant amount of work that needs to be done with that building. So I would
Do you have any
agree with you.
does the administration have any objections or concerns about selling that building?
I don't think so. It's being used right now. I think there's interest with the current user.
Yeah.
When we did our assessment, there's a good dollar value out there for that. So I think depending on what everyone decides, I think we should pursue that and move forward with doing something with that building.
We've talked about that before, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in favor of that. And I don't see it long-term being something that, you know, we need or would use, would renovate.
How do we move that to the next step now is what I'd like to say. Like, I don't want to see us continue to have I feel like the conversation is stalled a little bit.
I think the recommendation is to charge the administration to put together a plan for the sale of Eastman.
Yeah.
And that includes the ballot issue and all the other things. And,
So
we'll
moved.
look at a valuation, we'll, a review by, a credible person that can come in and assess the value of it,
Yeah.
right? So
Sure.
we know that, and move forward. I mean, we've
Yeah,
talked
I mean, I
about,
think
Jim's right, we've talked
we've
about.
kind of gone off the rail on it because we thought that the Boys and Girls Club would move more quickly on it.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I
so
think
maybe
they're-
we need to open that up.
Yeah, their issue was they were completing their project out in Pennacook, and so they were trying to balance it a little bit, not, I think they have an interest in it, Bob.
Yeah.
But their focus was on Pennacook, a project, and, we'll reach back out to them. I mean, we wanna be, but as you know, the city always has, right of first refusal, so we have to consider that too, so we'll
Right.
work with the city. But if you would like and make that recommendation, we'll begin to put that plan together for you. It'll be a plan, and then you can, do with it what you want.
We would bring the plan to this committee first before going to the board.
Absolutely, it would come here first, and then you would make a recommendation about it, and then it would go to a full board. And all the, all the things that you have to go through in terms of hearing.
Oh, there's a lot.
There's a
Yeah.
process. Has this building been valued? Well,
This building?
yes.
The city has it valued. I'd have to check on vision appraisals to see what they have it valued for, but we haven't, in my memory, we haven't brought in an independent valuation of it.
I'm just never completely comfortable with the fact that we have a building that employees who experience disabilities can't access most of. And I wonder, given we know the residential side is hot, but the commercial side is a little slower, and it, you know, is there, and Jonathan Charlian could probably do wonderful things, among others, you know, whether there, you know, we could find something cheaper and accessible.
As Kathleen said, you know, I think if you give us that charge, we'll do everything you guys ask.
Yeah, we'll investigate. We'll come to you with some information, and we'll go from there. And then, you know, you have more ability to decide what you want to do.
Yeah.
But it's true, though. I mean, we can't access, this is the only room that anybody with mobile issues would have access to. And
It
we
is.
do, and if you need privacy, we do try to use the Dewey room, but, you know, that's, you have to remember, the staff here is using this room all the time. I mean, all of our curriculum meetings, all of our big meetings, I mean, I use it all the time for principals meetings and CO central office meetings, and all of the projects happen here, so it is difficult for folks.
Yeah.
There's no getting upstairs, and we've had folks that work here that have had issues around mobility, and it's not been appropriate.
Matt, what did we spend on the high school roof replacement?
Again, don't quote me on it. I think we're in the 5 million range.
Okay. I was gonna
And
say,
that
I'm a
was-
little concerned that 5 million may be a little low, but,
For the.
Well,
the
it's
Runlet.
smaller square footage.
okay.
Okay, and what I put in the notes is, that's an overall roof replacement. That would be EPDM. It's different than the 2-ply poly that we put up on a more durable. There's other considerations that make it pretty complicated with Runlet, because the HVAC units are not as high off the roof as they are up at the high school. So if we're doing a full demo, we need to do something with the HVAC units that exist. You also have to take in consideration depending on which direction we're going, what we're going to do with those HVAC, if we're going to convert them to dehumidified air like we have and will do up at the high school in Broken Ground and Beaver Meadow this summer. I can't get an assessment of what the decking of that roof looks like until we start removing portions of it, and we can assess. There's wood sections, there's concrete. What's up there right now, it's showing its signs and ceiling tiles and roof leaks when we have heavy rains and when we have melting snow.
And then, Matt, you know, we're in that school 3 to 6 years. You know, at the short end, would the patching be adequate to get us through that timeframe? Or would we have to invest more as we got beyond?
I want to sharpen the number for patching, and I want to do patching this summer. I don't think,
We've got 57 trash cans catching water.
Yeah,
would
we don't
to
need
do
more.
patching this summer.
Yep.
But
But I
I'm
don't-
curious
I-
as to how much, like if we build at the Broken Ground site, it's 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
roughly, till it's out. If we build at the South Street, the Runlet site, that means that building needs to last 5, maybe 6 years. I mean, from today, actually, well, at the very least, it's to 2030, and probably 2031, if you would do that at that point. And so what additional costs are those, do we need to factor in? I'm thinking,
19, yeah.
19 seems a little low.
It is, and I said that during the review of it. I think that what we did is we invited a contractor to come walk it in the early fall with us, and we really looked at the obvious, the things that would immediately take our priority. So we spray painted areas up there. We went up, looked at it, but even I would agree with you. 19,000 to patch 165,000 square foot facility
Yeah.
is low, but
It's gonna be that much at least
I
every year.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and I think once you start getting in and you surgically removing sections of the roof, you start exposing and looking, and
Yeah.
once you open up
You're on
that
the
can
way.
of worms, yeah. So, so what I tried to do, and I hope we were efficient with it, showed what we want to look at for the summer projects. We're going to come back to you during budget season and really focus on the summer projects for this coming summer. But just we do this every year. We just want to look at the capital improvement plan. I'd love it if we could do follow-on meetings where we could either highlight schools and, but continually, this is a working document, so the more we can do that would be better, so.
I'm looking at some of these things, and I went down here writing, needs and wants, and all, and some of them really jump out. For instance, the sinkhole thing is definitely got to be on the list.
That's neat.
Yeah, there are some things that are clearly, we need to plan for this, annual lawn service, we can discuss, but
Yeah.
the sinkhole is something that we really need to address right away. We
Matt and I
can't
talked
put
about that,
off.
Jim, too. We, we talked about the generators, right? We have generators at some schools, we don't have them at all schools and here. But that may not be necessary, so we just put it out there so for
No.
consideration
Yep.
and thought and talk about.
Well, and it seems, and Matt, you can update me on this because we didn't go totally into this, you did some big projects and stuff, but it seems like at the existing runlet with the asbestos, when we repair a bathroom, pretty much every year, and it's $150,000 of work to just fix the toilets and the sinks. And that has to do a lot with what we have, what
Yeah.
we have in there. What is the condition, because I always hear that from people, is like the bathrooms they take such a beating, and I'm just curious as to
They do, and.
where we are on that with regards to that building as well as some of the older buildings.
They definitely need renovation. Again, you get in, you start touching a toilet in some of these bathrooms, and the wall that's holding it up has asbestos in it, so you can't simply go in there and do a typical toilet or faucet replacement. If you have to replace a sink, you've got to take it off the wall, and then you have to have something solid to mount to. You don't have that in those bathrooms right now, or ever had, so. It would,
The reason I just bring that is there are some things like, bathrooms are one we can't shortchange, and we cannot, not have operational bathrooms in any of our buildings. We have to have them all 100% operational. It's just one of those basic things we have to plan for the summer.
And you know that many school districts are going to single bathrooms. The gang bathrooms have, been an issue, and
For a variety of
for
reasons.
a variety of reasons, for more than one person being in the bathroom, and also for, particular issues. So, and the other one that really needs to be is a family bathroom. We have families in the schools all the time for games and activities, and we don't have a family bathroom where mom or dad can take a young child in. So those are things that we're just trying to, they're current. There isn't a building that is under construction that doesn't have that amenity for
right.
families, that's all.
One other question, and that is, the gym floor at Beaver Meadow is a rubberized floor. Would you replace that with a rubberized floor?
That's a great, I'm glad you asked that. I brought a contractor in, and I thought, instead of just replacing in kind, what other options do we have? So this type of a laminate floor is becoming popular in some sports floors. That's one option. Or It's, very much cost dependent, but we could go with maple, or in the newer elementaries, we have bamboo.
Bamboo, I was gonna say.
So I think we've got some options there. But one way or the other, that floor has gaps and separations, and we've been patching it and trying to hold it together. But it's given us a good 40 years, so.
Well, and it's used it's not just the gym floor, it's the auditorium stage.
It is.
Assembly room floor as well.
So if everyone's good with that, we covered the 2 items on the agenda, and the last one was just essentially a discussion about Memorial Field, and I think you had a lot of it last night.
Yeah, Monday night.
Monday night.
And so the only update, I think, is following our meeting on Monday, I emailed the mayor and the city manager and told them how we voted, and I'm awaiting a response. So,
Yeah.
And I had a chance to speak with the city manager and indicated the position that the board took. So he's aware, and we'll begin to work together to come up with a plan to begin that discussion. Tom's on board.
So unless there was any other questions, I didn't have anything else to.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you,
Ready?
Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you.
Good summary.